The new round-the-clock reality of this not-quite war, far from ceasefire. US forces once more striking Iran overnight. US Central Command saying it was focusing on targets near the Strait of Hormuz, command centers, air defense, surveillance and missiles and drones. Also more hits on the port city of Chabahar, away from the strait on the Arabian Sea. President Trump overnight welcoming Iran's release of a US dual citizen as a gesture of goodwill, but maintaining his renewed threat to attack civilian infrastructure, including power plants, as soon as next week.
I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know. They know the story. They better behave.
Iran's military saying if those threats are carried out,
then everything that has so far remained intact due to Iran's restraint, namely all infrastructure across the region, will be smashed by the iron blows of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, leaving no trace behind, as though it had never existed.
And the Reuters news agency today reporting that Iran's Houthi allies in Yemen have been instructed to resume their attacks on Red Sea shipping if Iranian infrastructure is hit. Iran threatening the global economy, the US threatening Iran's. A high-stakes game of chicken briefly averted by the two sides' agreement in June, now resumed. The United States back to blockading Iranian ports, striking an Iran-bound tanker last night. Non-Iranian carriers once again seized up in the strait, forcing oil prices up more than 7% this week, with mounting fears of the economic effects of another long closure.
That is the first that I have ever heard of this particular story.
The US Vice President telling the podcaster Joe Rogan that Iranian hardliners, fearful of losing leverage, were behind the resumed hostilities and blaming Israeli elements for hindering peace talks.
I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there have been people within the Israeli government who are trying to, actually shift us away from that policy because they want to continue the military campaign.
So far, Israel excluded from this resumption of hostilities. The Prime Minister this week warning Iran of a more forceful response than before if it attacked Israel. In southern Lebanon, from where Iran had demanded a full Israeli withdrawal, Lebanese troops reportedly preparing to take control of limited pilot zones from Israeli soldiers, where Hezbollah fighters have been disarmed. Pressure on Hezbollah coming from Syria too, where authorities displayed a cache of weapons discovered inside an empty oil truck, which it said was bound for the Lebanese group, dispatched by Tehran. Right now it's the delivery of these Iranian munitions at commercial shipping at US military bases, igniting fresh concern in the region. Two worrying scenarios: that this so far limited conflict escalates, or that it simply goes on for so long at this level as to cause ever greater economic damage.
Joining me now is Javier Blas, energy and commodities columnist at Bloomberg. Thank you for joining me. The rhetoric feels very worrying. Some of what we're seeing feels very worrying, but the oil price hasn't actually moved that much. Do you think the markets just don't believe Donald Trump, for example, saying he's going to bomb Iran back to the Stone Age?
I think that the market is in part a bit relaxed because they saw that at the end of the day, last time that we got this position, both sides decided that they wanted to negotiate. And still, I believe that the market feels that we are heading to an outcome that it will be solved through negotiation rather than a massive bombing campaign, as we saw in March and April.
But if Iran does what it seems to be suggesting and hits infrastructure across the Gulf, individual strikes like that can have a huge impact, can't they, on the market?
Those threats certainly are having an impact, and that's why we are trading close to $80 a barrel for Brent crude from the North Sea, rather than $70 that we were about 10 days ago. But still, there are relatively low prices for all what is happening in the Middle East. So I think that the market is not yet convinced that we are heading back to the kind of campaign of high intensity that we were 100 days ago.
And what could, in this situation, trigger another shock?
Well, I think that there are three major things that they are keeping the market under control. One is that we are releasing oil from the strategic petroleum reserves. That is finite, and at some point we run out of those reserves. But we still have several weeks, perhaps a couple of more months of strategic petroleum reserves. The other thing that is happening is that through the Strait of Hormuz, although Iran has declared it closed, there are oil tankers that they are still crossing. We call it dark crossing because those tankers are shutting down their transponders, their beacons that indicate their position, and they are mostly crossing at night. But there is still a flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, we have pipelines that they bypass the Strait of Hormuz through Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. And the other big reason that we are where we are today is because China has taken a huge step back from the market. China typically buys around 11 million barrels a day in the oil market. At the moment, is buying less than 6 million barrels a day. That's like removing the whole of Germany, France, and the UK from the oil market. And as long as China stays away from the market, that helps.
What's going on there? How are they managing that?
We don't know. We believe that they are releasing some oil from the stockpiles. Then China has been investing a lot on electric vehicles, and there is a shift clearly from the population of running on electric vehicles. Their chemical industry that typically uses oil as a feedstock is using coal through a process of coal to chemicals. But the exact mechanics of that is a mystery to the oil market. No one is for sure certain of how China is doing it, and therefore we don't know how long China can continue doing so.
Let me ask you this. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State in the US, has described the Strait of Hormuz as Iran's economic nuclear weapon. Is that what we are seeing, or does their power over the strait weaken over time?
I think that it weakens over time because everyone in the Middle East is going to be building pipelines. So yes, for sure, for the next few weeks, months, the next couple of years, Iran has a nuclear weapon over the global economy thanks to the Strait of Hormuz. But if we think where we are going to be in 2030, everyone is going to be building pipelines to bypass. The United Arab Emirates already has a pipeline that is 50% built. Saudi Arabia is thinking about expanding pipelines, Kuwait also. It will weaken.
Javier Blas, thank you very much.